Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Lorenzo Grandi, and I am the founding director of the City Diplomacy Lab. I'm very happy to welcome you all today to the webinar Cities and Social Justice. This is the first episode of the Cities and Social Solutions series, consisting of 4 webinars co-organized by the City Diplomacy Lab and Columbia Global Centers, Paris. These webinars will take place on the 3rd Thursday of each month from now until June. In each of them, we will celebrate the leadership of cities committed to shaping an equitable future for all urban residents, focusing on social justice, gender, inclusion, and age, respectively. Our format is simple. Each webinar will feature a dialogue with representatives from cities that have introduced some of the most impactful and inspiring social solutions worldwide. Our webinars are highly participatory, and the audience is invited to ask questions through the Q&A section that you find on the bottom of your screen. Our panelists will address as many questions as possible in the second part of this conversation. So today we have the privilege of hosting 3 cities that have made social justice a priority. EThekwini, the city of Durban in South Africa, Leeds in the United Kingdom, and New Orleans in the United States. Allow me to introduce our distinguished speakers. Roshini Bob is the project executive for the Community and Emergency Services Cluster with EThekwini Municipality and deals with matters relating to health, safety, security, and social cohesion. Currently, she also performs a role as the city coordinator for the National Integrated Safer Cities program. Roshini holds a doctorate in business administration from the University of Kwa-Zulu Natal, South Africa, where the focus of her research was women in management. From Leeds, we have the pleasure of welcoming Liz Jarmin, the head of locality partnerships at the Leeds City Council. Leeds currently manages a portfolio of services, including work to address poverty and inequality in the city's most deprived neighborhoods, community centers, locality-based youth services, and providing support to the elected councillors. Liz holds an MA in Urban Regeneration from Leeds Beckett University. And last but not least, from New Orleans, Khalida Nicole Lloyd serves as the director of the Mayor's Office of Human Rights and Equity for the city of New Orleans in the Cantrell administration. In this role, she has the opportunity to work with the city departments to bake equity in city programs, services, and funding, and promote human rights. Khalida is an attorney, community organizer, racial equity consultant, speaker, and a reconciler. She holds a JD from the North Carolina Central University School of Law. Roshini, Liz, Khalida, thank you so much for your participation and welcome to the webinar. And I would like to start this webinar by asking our panelists to help us understand what pursuing social justice really means. And if it is true that social justice is generally understood as a situation in which equality is ensured for everyone in a community, there is nevertheless a wide agreement among scholars that its deeper meaning varies from context to context. And the choice to invite city representatives from 3 different continents aimed precisely to identify both the common core of municipal action for social justice and the creativity which is needed to address and resolve the specific aspects that this issue takes on in cities. To do so, we will now explore 3 best practices, one for each city, which proved effective in addressing this trend. Our panelists come with a visual proof of their policies' impact. And I would like to start with EThekwini. I kindly ask my colleague Andrew Wells to share the photos collage we received from Roshini. Roshini, can you please share with us what are the story and the urban action behind these photos?
Sure. Thank you, Lorenzo, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. I understand that our participants are from various time zones. Thank you for taking the time to hear and accord us to give you our experiences within EThekwini Municipality, the city of Durban. Our approach is on social justice is where we apply human security approach within the city of EThekwini Municipality, and we do it in piloted neighborhoods. So we don't do it across the municipality. We look at stats linked to the crime and other social ill elements, and then we bring on board the necessary partners from the neighborhoods, both the residents, the civil societies, as well as the government players within the environments. Linked to that, which is very important, we actually get political buy-in from it. And our evidence-based led research is done initially based on the crime stats, and particularly focusing on stats like human abuse, gender-based violence, child welfare, and elder welfare. So we take it through a journey and bring it on to look at actually physically looking at what is the condition on the ground and how the levels of improvement would like to take place. We understand that security is always a symptom, and root causes may be unemployment, job creation, and those type of things. But if you want to improve the wellness and welfare of people, especially looking at the various impetus linked to social security, you have to get partners that is collectively understanding holistically. If you get a job for somebody, you might end up reducing gender-based violence because sometimes it's linked, or you might end up reducing matters of mental health in society. If you actually physically get a community garden going, you can make sure people are not going to bed hungry because you have, and equally, they can start generating economic in that process. So for us, it is basically looking at a process where we look at human security, firstly with a participatory appraisal approach to understand exactly what would be that specific neighborhood or township needs, and then thereafter start planning with the communities, with the NGOs and other partners in the space to start improving people's life. So what we actually do is basically, if colleagues understand Maslow hierarchy of needs, we've started a model where we invert it, where we give people the ability to be self-actualized and start growing themselves in the neighborhood. I'll stop there, Lorenzo, if that's okay with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roshini. Very important food for thought. I believe a few points will be recurrent in this conversation, starting from the measurement of the impact of inequity to the empowerment of individuals and communities. I would like now to move to Leeds and ask Liz to explain what is the story behind this photo collage.
Thank you, Lorenzo, and good morning and good afternoon. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about some of our experience and practice in Leeds. And I'm gonna canter through quite a bit of information in terms of how we deliver our social action and social justice programmes at the local level, right through to the more strategic work that we do at a citywide level with our partners. So just for anybody's information in terms of Leeds, we are a city in the north of the UK. We sit in the county of West Yorkshire. We've got a population of about 812,000 people. We're the second most populous district in the UK outside of London, and we have a hugely diverse city. We've got representation from around about 120 different nationalities, and we have over 140 different spoken languages in the city. From an economic perspective, Leeds is the UK's fastest growing city and is the main driver of a city region with an economy of around about 65 billion. And over the next 10 years, our economy in Leeds is expected to grow by a further 21%, particularly in the financial and business services. And as a city region, we also generate over half the GVA for the area. However, according to the indices of national deprivation, which is a measure that the government produces on a a fairly infrequent basis, I should add, of our 482 lower super output areas, so those are the neighbourhoods of about 120,000 residents, 24% of our communities are ranked amongst the most deprived nationally, and 12 of those are actually in the 1% most deprived in the whole of the country. So despite our massive economic prosperity, we have some real challenges in terms of deprivation in the city. So the pictures that you can see on the left-hand side is a picture of a renewal of a skate park in a part of the city called Holbeck, which is one of our most deprived areas, and indeed one of the most deprived areas in the whole of the country. And on the right-hand side is another one of our most deprived areas, and that's the redesign of a community park. Both of them were really poorly used, lots of issues around antisocial behaviour, poor environment. The areas generally lack green space, and both had poor quality equipment and a real lack of investment. Residents' perceptions were that both those particular places were unsafe, and as a result of that, the areas were considered to be no-go areas, particularly for the children in the area. And for many children, that meant not playing out at all outside of school. So they weren't really getting involved in any social activities to support their development and growth, and nor any activities that would mean young people and indeed wider communities coming together. Resident engagement in these areas was very low, and particularly very low with public services. We have some big issues in Leeds around people in our most deprived areas often having a lack of confidence of how to engage with local communities. Although we do have really good engagement with local civic societies, of which we've got a really strong civic society in Leeds. We've got over 3,000 organisations delivering activities and projects through volunteering and other ways and means across the city. And unfortunately, it also meant we didn't have in these particular areas very good resident engagement. So we have both these areas are very diverse, lots of established communities, lots of established migrant communities, but also lots of newer communities. And what we weren't seeing in these areas were really any opportunities for those communities to come together and learn from one another and become neighbours and friends. So in terms of the specifics, what we did, we secured funding to redevelop both parks. We engaged with local residents and young people to understand why they weren't using the facilities and what they wanted to see happen in the future. We employed the service of a local artist who worked with the local community to redesign the park. And in the skate park, we actually worked with the local pupil referral unit, which supports children that are at risk of exclusion or permanent exclusion from mainstream education. And all the children that attend that school have been referred due to mild, moderate social, emotional and mental health needs. We also involved a range of services throughout the project, so not necessarily just projects and services that would be involved in the delivery of the actual schemes. We involved public health professionals, we involved people that could come and give advice about benefits, about housing issues. So we really tried to make all services that could engage with those local communities part of the overall process. And we also very much were led by local politicians in terms of how we engage with local people. So the outcomes for us were that we got two really lovely parks now and facilities that are absolutely amazingly used. Lots of activities taking place during the school holidays, evenings, and they've really become the hub of local activity. And both these places were areas where local residents really wouldn't go. We've seen residents taking more pride in their local area and actually maintaining the areas. We've seen improved community cohesions, residents using the space, and the children aren't using it, young people aren't using it to actually come together for gatherings and meet with one another and really start to develop that sense of community community cohesion, sorry. And we've also seen a real improvement in confidence in local services, so greater referrals to access services locally. So we're able to support some of our most vulnerable residents much better. We've seen better reductions in social behaviour and other crime-related issues in both parks, and we've seen improved reporting to public services such as the police around issues. And it's really helped us to encourage residents to use their voice and work with local services to be a part of making their neighbourhoods better places to live. In terms of our citywide approach, we not dissimilar to the colleague that spoke before, is that we work more intensively in 6 priority wards in the city, and those are the wards where our 1% most deprived neighbourhoods reside. So they're the 12 areas, neighbourhoods in the city which are ranked worst nationally, of which we have 12 of them. Our approaches in terms of working in those wards is very much about how we develop integrated working processes with a real focus around collaboration and partnership working. Many of these areas, in fact, all of these areas present issues that are really complex and very very difficult to untangle as a single issue. And in recognition of that, we work with other services, including the police, the health services, education, universities, and further education colleges, in recognising that no one service can sort these issues out alone. This is a real joint effort, including working with communities, and that's the best way that we're going to be able to help overcome some of the issues and lift these areas out of poverty. We have a real focus on voice and empowerment, and that's resident voice and empowerment, and we use asset-based community development or ABCD approaches to really drive a bottom-up approach. We want to know what residents want to see change and how can we equip them to help that change happen in their local neighbourhoods. And we've also done a lot of work to align our large-scale capital infrastructure projects to link them better with some of the projects we're doing around improving the social fabric and community empowerment. So, for example, we've just secured about £16 million in Helbeck, which is where the skate park project is, to regenerate that area. And it's largely a capital scheme, but very much working with our capital infrastructure and regeneration programs about how those capital programs can really driven from a bottom-up approach, and that residents really do feel that they've been brought along the journey, and that those changes that are going to happen in their local areas are being done with them and not to them. We also are working around looking at how we can create more community ownership. So as a local authority, we own a large asset, a large estate, which includes a lot of local assets, and we're looking at how we can better transfer and enable local organisations to actually run those assets for us with our support, obviously. And we're also working really closely with our local elected members, so our local councillors and politicians, through our community committee structure, which is very much about developing leadership from the bottom up and seeing those local representatives step into that leadership space. We're using
Lisa, sorry if I interrupt you. It's very, very interesting, but we will certainly have time to complement the full strategy of Leeds in the second round of questions. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, that's fine.
It's very, very important, the points that you have mentioned, this role of development, including economic development, and its relationship with equity, and the importance of the action to be transversal within the municipal administration. This is so interesting to know and to consider in the continuation of this webinar. So I would like now to leave the floor to Khalida from New Orleans, who also prepared some interesting photos to share with us. Khalida, can you please explain what are these photos representing?
Yeah, well, good morning and good afternoon. We are honored, the City of New Orleans is honored to be a part of this international landscape of talking about social justice and how equity interacts with that, and I'm grateful to be a part of this conversation. I bring you greetings. We just concluded our Mardi Gras festivities, and so I bring you greetings from the City of New Orleans with lots of cheer and life, and from our mayor, Latoya Cantrell, as well. And so what you see before you is kind of one of the things that we are really most proud of in terms of the initiative and the work. This is what we call an opportunity to focus on our immigrant and refugee population in a very strategic and intentional way. We engage in a journey with an organization called Welcoming America, which certifies cities all across the United States. I want to say they're also global, but don't correct me on that. To be able to do work and be active participants for the immigrant and refugee community. To give a little bit of context, the city of New Orleans is a little bit under 400,000 in population and has diversity amongst Black, Indigenous, people of color of over 75%. And so of that population, there's an immigrant and refugee population. And when it's all said and done, the city of New Orleans is an immigrant and refugee city, if you will. Lots of our culture, our food, our cuisines, our music, all those things are things brought from different places to make what New Orleans is. And so being able to work intentionally around immigrant and refugee services and programming has been one of the things that we have been proud of. And so what you see here is us unveiling the fact that we were certified welcoming. And so we went through a rigorous process that really was important to me in learning with community organizations, with city departments, with other state organizations to really look at the things that the city of New Orleans provided for their immigrant and refugee populations. And so we had to get credentialing from our community organizations and really getting a recommendation to be certified and going through our policies. And so we were able to be the first city in Louisiana to be certified welcoming, and also the first city across the Gulf Coast for that matter. And so we're proud of this accomplishment. We have much work to do, right? Still to be able to truly maximize the work and the services that we can provide our immigrant and refugee population, but we are on that path. And so the top picture represents representatives from the Louisiana Organization of Refugee and Immigrants, who was able to come and see the unveiling of our certified welcoming, as well as we honored Little Amal. And Little Amal is a, I want to say 10-foot puppet of a 10-year Syrian girl who is traveling the globe and bringing awareness around refugee and immigrant affairs. And so she visited New Orleans, and that's our mayor there as well, who's greeting her and giving her wonderful umbrella that represents our culture and our second lines and all those different aspects. What's really important about these types of initiatives is that it's rooted in community organizations. If we as a city are doing programs and services outside of being tapped into community orgs where the people are engaged and they're touching them every day, it's kind of for naught. And so this initiative is very much rooted in community organizations. It's led by that. The city was able to come alongside community orgs, work to do the work and to become certified welcoming. And then we get to do more work as we continue around this initiative as a whole. The other thing that I just want to say is part of what our city gets to do around this work is to recognize that we do have an immigrant and refugee population here in our city. And how do we service that population? How do we recognize? Just speaks to the fabric of our city, the diversity of our city. We want people to feel welcoming to come here. We want people to know that they are welcome to be in our city because it makes the city what it is. And so I'll stop there for now.
Thank you very much, Khalida, for your inspiring words. We can see how important it is to recognize that the city's culture has many origins, many people contributing to it, regardless of the migratory status. And there is a lot of advantage of harnessing this diversity from all over the community. Thank you so much to the three of you for this proof that very inspiring action are happening and are changing the society, moving forward to social justice. But of course, this is a movement that needs to go even further afield. It's something that has been mentioned by all of you. We want to go even farther away. And for that, I would like to ask all of you if you can present your vision with the help of a keyword that somehow encapsulates this vision. I know it's a difficult question because one word, it's very limiting, but let's try this exercise. And I would like to start with Liz.
Okay, thank you. So the word that I chose was the word equality. So in terms of the way that that we want to work in Leeds is that we want to create a fairer city where our residents' voice and their influence is central to everything that we do in terms of making decisions and developing services. But in doing that, recognising that everyone's journey is different, and that some communities face greater challenges to achieve their potential. So we want to try and make the voice of those whose voices are less easy to hear much more audible in our city. And we're starting that by really looking at our workforce in terms of how our managers and our services respond. We've just undertaken a big programme and continue to undertake a big programme around equality, diversity and inclusion. We are looking at much more about how we recognise the value of lived experience and how this can help us to make our services better and how we respond to the needs of local people better. We're working on the principles of Leeds becoming a city that embraces interculturalism. So that's not just about where people live and coexist together, where they have different backgrounds, but also how they prosper from knowing and understanding one another's backgrounds and cultures, and that we create an environment where we can have good dialogue and create personal connections between people with different lived experience and different backgrounds. And all of this, we try to do this obviously in a shrinking environment, which means that we often have to make decisions that are difficult and sometimes impact on people's sense of equality and fairness. But we remain optimistic and ambitious as a city, and we're really passionate about making sure that all our citizens feel that they've given every opportunity to be able to make the best of being a citizen of Leeds, and indeed a citizen of the UK. So I'll stop there, but equality is really, really important to us in Leeds. We want to be a fair city where people feel that that they're treated fairly and that their voice is heard.
Thank you so much, Liz. I've had the pleasure of visiting your city, and I have to say that these values, you can really feel it in your streets and in your community. I would like now to ask Khalida if she can do the same exercise and present us with a keyword which encapsulates this vision for the future of social justice in New Orleans.
I think initially when I heard what the question was, initially the word that came to mind was people. Being able to prioritize people as we continue to grow the city of New Orleans and reestablish ourselves in so many different ways. Next year, we'll be celebrating the 20th anniversary. I say celebrate, but honoring and recognizing the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Which was a major hurricane that hit the city of New Orleans and other parts of the United States as well during that time. And what we want to prioritize and vision as we're going forward is how do we improve the quality of life for people here in New Orleans? How through our services, our programs, our initiatives, the monies, our budgets, our funding, how we invest in people, how do we make sure that their quality of life is being improved? And so being able to prioritize people, as our mayor says, meet people where they are. So being in community with people, really giving some ethos to community engagement where people are. And so really prioritizing people at the forefront is something that we want to envision. How do we improve their quality of life? How do we engage our residents? And how do we make sure that the solutions that we're coming up with are really things that are going to change people's lives and ultimately the city of New Orleans to make it for the better? Because we want everybody to come to the city of New Orleans. So.
Thank you so much, Khalida, for the invitation. I think that's there is a strong desire to visit this beautiful city from all of us and our audience. And I really can see from your words that there is real city humanism, which is emerging, this people-centric vision, which really has some important and interesting philosophical grounding that allows us to see the role of individuals and society differently. It's a nice refreshing vision, I think, that we need in these difficult times. And last but not least, I would like to ask Roshini, what is the keyword she has chosen?
Well, you know, us people in Africa, we do things differently. So I didn't really choose a keyword, but rather a key statement. And that is my city, my safety, my responsibility. Lorenzo, EThekwini Municipality and the city of Durban is an East Coast city in KwaZulu Natal, based in South Africa. It's the third largest metropolitan in South Africa, metropolitan municipality in South Africa, and made up of 3.8 million people. And in addition to that, we have about 200,000 refugees that's registered, but we don't know how many more that's around. So we've got huge challenges around homelessness and those type of things, both for locals as well as our refugee population. So it's also in the Southern African region, hosts the largest port. And if I can say that we have we were part of an apartheid regime, and we really in our infancy of democracy. And during the apartheid regime, you had the aspects of Group Areas Acts, and you had townships and Bantustans in that space. So when we started to introduce this, we wanted to have a holistic and integrated approach towards things, with the vision being people taking ownership and understanding their role and what they need to do in that space, with actually in bringing into our leaders to ensure that safe and secure environments prevail within EThekwini Municipality. That was our mission, to bring and make sure that we constantly get political buy-in in whatever we do. And really to live the statement of leaving nobody behind, whether you're a business, whether you're a citizen, whether you're a marginalized population, whether you're a refugee, you all will participate in things collectively to find solutions through research that's evidence-led, as well as facilitation and urban management coordination on whether it's crime, violence, socioeconomic issues, social ills, as well as community safety initiatives. And our approach is very simple. It's a three-prong approach. We look at law enforcement. We understand that our law enforcement agencies play a very, very important role in bringing social justice to the space. We equally understand that people need to know that if you do the wrong thing, you have elements of bylaw enforcement. So whatever you do, you need to be accountable for that. And then we also started to use technology, having CCTV cameras and having other aspects of technology where people can communicate in it. And then we looked at social prevention, teaching people about what gender-based violence is all about, teaching people about what is construed as abuse, because society and the way cultural norms prevail, sometimes people be silent rather than realizing that they are being exposed to abusive spaces, and making people start to realize that, looking at our recreational facilities, encouraging our arts and culture people, our sports personalities and everything to come into particularly the historical marginalized communities, to grow them up and actually become semi-urban areas and become areas where they can do for themselves and generate income around that. But notwithstanding that, we also require support, both at a mental as well as a personal level, and that's where we bring in victim support centers, NGOs, and partners to come through that. So, and then lastly, looking at how we deal with prevention. As I mentioned earlier, it's about participation. It's about people sitting together. We not only youth, but the entire community is made up of elders. It's made up workers, it's made up of a workforce, it's equally made up of unemployed people and people that are marginalized, bringing them together to understand what their plights are and to find solution. Let them find their solutions in the space so that government can create the enabling environments. I love the New Orleans and the Leeds approach in whatever they do. We're doing it, we're all saying the same thing, but in different ways. So that's exciting. That says that we are in the right way. So we also bring in all our different spheres of government. South Africa is such where it's made up of 3 spheres of government. And through that, we've got something called a district development model. And through our justice, crime prevention, and security process, we bring our other government partners into the space. And they have exposure to our civil societies and all other aspects of government. The other very important thing that I must say is we constantly get buy-in from our business sector. They want to start participate. They want to create opportunities. They want to, like our community garden program, they want to physically, they buy the food. The neighborhood businesses buy the food and sell it. So it's actually creating wealth within the space. So there is opportunities. We also have, as people would know, EThekwini Municipality has been a hit with a lot of floods, flash floods lately. So, climate change and disasters are impacting us tremendously. That equally contributes to the negative social justice ambits, as well as we've got some elements of social civil rights in our spaces. And that too, when you burn businesses and everything, the most marginalized ends up getting part of the unemployed pool. So we're always constantly having partners coming through from other parts of the world to share better practices and to actually articulate and look at and help us. Because sometimes the EThekwini logo is not trusted by communities. So when you get other partners to come in, it equally helps to bring society and people together so that they can speak more freely in the space. I'm extremely proud and excited about the social security, human security program we have launched in Kwandanyezi. It's added value. We plan to put it in 9 more neighborhoods within the city. And hopefully that starts preventing the racial divide of land masses. Your Group Areas Act did quite a number on the city. You have to get infrastructure to bring people together. You have to make sure that people start living in one another's areas and those type of things. So you need to have a more open and more cultural tolerance in the space. And these type of programs bring that into play. So yeah, I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roshni. You touched upon very interesting points, and one I find particularly inspiring is that we have this responsibility to be part of the change, not only expect for the municipality to implement it, but we all should play a role in it. I think that's very important to take into consideration. Well, before going to the Q&A session, I would like to remember all our audience that they can ask a question through the Q&A section that they find in their screen. It can be a question to one specific panelist or to all of them. Please specify that if you want. And allow me to start and take inspiration from something Roshni just mentioned, this importance of dialogue, knowledge exchange, collaboration between cities. In a nutshell, what city diplomacy is. And of course, it's a topic which is near and dear to my heart. And so I would like to start with Khalida and ask you, what is the importance of this kind of meeting, this kind of knowledge exchange in advancing social justice in one's city?
Very important. I think when we think about what our world is going to look like 10, 15, 20 years from now, we have to be in collaboration and in conversation with one another to really realize such a vision. If we're not in communication and conversation with one another through the ideation, through testing, right? Then what world are we going to be able to manifest? And so we understand that different communities look different and different needs, but what does it look like to really exchange ideas? And then you just shift it for your community's needs, right? No solution is not a bad one. And so if we're really in conversation with one another and exchanging ideas, then that is for the good. And it's for the good globally. And so if one city is thriving, why can't the other city be thriving in the same way? If we're really collaborative and rooting for each other. And I think we're in a season and we're in a time where we all want to be global citizens of the world. And so I think it's very important. So.
Thank you, Khalida. Can I ask you, Roshni, if you can also elaborate on this important point?
Yeah, collaboration is extremely important, especially when you're dealing with diverse cultural needs and because you have to understand and get a common goal in that space. So we look at it is about the civil societies. They are the ones you see when it comes to the local government structures, bureaucracy plays a great deal in our space. So there's certain things that we cannot do almost overnight because we have to wait to follow the committee reports and get approval and those type of things. While when you collaborate with other partners and especially with global partners such as the UN and those type of and the SA Cities networks and the UCLGs and those type of people, whenever something happens and if there's an urgent need to be hit on the ground, your partners can get it done for you, you know. But then equally, you hold their hands to make sure that they're doing the right thing and not doing a quick fix that will become a problem overnight. So, and the most important, the key element in this is the level of political involvement in the collaboration and the buy-in from the political players, especially linked to the way the local government has to function in our space. If you do not have the buy-in and relationship, it becomes a huge issue. And that equally will frustrate our partners on the ground, and they may go to other cities, other countries, other neighborhoods to actually add value. The other partner that I didn't mention, and I think is extremely crucial in the space, is the academic institutions. They come with a wealth of knowledge about certain types of evidence-led studies, and they can and give us the information so that we can localize it and implement appropriately. So relationships, be it within the communities, very, very important, because then you start getting to know one another and understanding one another's plights. But then equally, if you want to grow in a limited fiscus, you have to bring collaborators and other partners around the table to find solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roshni. Among the interesting points you mentioned is the importance of the alignment between the politician and the technician within local governments, which is essential. I certainly agree, and not always very easy, as you rightly highlighted. And last but not least, I would like to ask Liz if she can also give her view on this importance of coming together, sharing best practices, and working together.
Thank you. I mean, I would agree with what my fellow panelists have said already. In Leeds, we recognise that often the issues that we're dealing with are complex, and no one organisation can solve them on their own. Long gone are the days where local authorities, local government can go in and solve all the problems. We really have to take a whole societal approach, and I think that the point that's been made around civic society or NGOs, I think as my colleagues refer to them, is really important. That quite often they've felt like the poor relative who steps in, and when we're not at work 9 to 5 or whatever it is, we're not during office hours. And actually what we've worked hard to do is make sure that our our local civic societies are actually equal players, and they have a seat around the table with us, and they are actually involved in making decisions and shaping policies and co-designing services and programs of work with us. And I suppose just to touch on the political aspects, is working with politicians is it can be really challenging, but I think that we need to remember why politicians are there. They're voted by the public. They certainly are in the UK through a democratic process, and that process is, that's important for us to remember that they have an important leadership role, and so we absolutely see our local politicians as absolutely key in terms of taking that local leadership role. And I know there was a question in the Q&A about how do we bring politicians along with us on the journey, particularly when we're looking at funding for projects. I think the way that we've done it in Leeds is that we bring our local elected members are involved from the very onset. So they sit front and forward in terms of projects, so that they lead the projects, they support us in terms of engaging with the public, and we really make them absolutely at the heart of everything that we do. And of course, last but not least, is our local residents. We are working really, really hard to have residents step into that leadership space and working to build community leadership alongside our political leadership. And we know that in Leeds we don't have the resources, as I said before, to sort out all the problems. And often the communities know the solutions, so it's how we equip them to deliver the solutions for themselves in an appropriate and supportive way. So I think collaboration is massively important.
Thank you very much, and also for starting to answer the question from the public, which I thank, of course, as they are flowing in. In fact, I can see that from this question from an anonymous attendee, there is some, I can read in the line, some level of frustration for the lack of funding, I guess, to local bottom-up initiatives. And certainly the availability of fund is an issue. What can you say to those citizens who are looking for funding to contribute to this kind of common shared challenge? What is your cities and your politicians trying to achieve to answer this ongoing, of course, challenge of the limited money available? Maybe we can start with Khalida.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. We won't solve our major social problems without funding. And so without funding, it will be hard to ideate, hard to execute. And so what I would say is, one, shame on those elected officials, but who you elect is important, right? And so there's another level of advocacy of making as a community and a voting bloc, and I'm not sure what city or country this person is necessarily from, but it's also important to galvanize people even around elections and voting and all those different aspects, so that their voice is truly the one that's recognized, so that pressure can be put on elected officials to do the right thing. Another part, though, is philanthropy. One of my really good colleagues has a statement, which I wholeheartedly agree. Philanthropy exists because inequities exist. And so we can't do this by ourselves. City governments, local governments, budgets can't solve all the major problems that we need. It's in community and in collaboration and in funding and sourcing resources. And so I would encourage this person to look up and really dive into philanthropy, your major corporations, your major foundations. Many people have initiatives around social justice issues. How do we really come up with really innovative ideas that philanthropy wants to fund in order to really correct our issues? Not putting a Band-Aid on it, but really correct our issues. I think philanthropy is very much in line and wanting to do that. And so I would encourage this person to really look into philanthropy, which is another challenge on its own in many ways, but very much a needed resource in order for us to be able to address our major problems.
Thank you very much, Khalida. And I would like to ask the same funding question to Dr. Roshni, and also add a second question from Sbuzio Mdlala, which specifically asks a question for you. If you can further elaborate, please, the EThekwini Municipality 2030 vision, Ubuntu and Mazakane concepts. Oh, I think you are muted.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm on now. Thank you very much. Firstly, to answer to Spoo's question on the 2030 vision, it's where EThekwini Municipality is the most livable and caring city in Africa. Through this, we do various aspects. The spirit of Ubuntu is giving and sharing in the space, and that's what Kwandanezi had. We went through the journey of understanding one another's plights, what is one another's needs, and now we're starting to articulate it, where they've asked for a community garden and we're looking at placing one. They've asked for a space where they want to meet as communities and unblock their challenges, and we've offered a community hall for meetings in that space. So you're looking at that, but you equally helping communities to share as well. So that when the communities come through, you can have a resident saying, I have this and I will share, and I have this and I will share. I have knowledge about how you plant seasonal vegetables. And in the community gardens, I want to be participating in that process. So we're starting to see people starting to gel in that. And then they're asking for the clinics to have more mental health practitioners in the space. And of course, as government, we need to look into that. Your Masakane programs are the programs where you go out to communities and look at wants and needs, and then bring it back and see how you mainstream it into your planning and budgetary processes. Of course, some of that journey has to go through the bureaucratic protocol of approvals and those type of things. But I'm happy to have a one-on-one with the colleague after the session so we can discuss more around the matters that's posed in his question. When it comes to funding, I want to say that yes, our city is right now very cash strapped, and it's purely because of the journeys that it has experienced from 2019 to date, and all the civil unrests and the floods and the major disastrous floods, together with the major flash floods that it's been experiencing. And that has compromised our water. It has compromised some of our electricity power plants, and everything else starts to become, it starts to overflow in that. The moment you don't have water and electricity, your businesses also gets challenged. People's work starts to impact in those type of things. However, I must tell you that you need to look outside the box. And that's the reason why we started the journey to say, my city, my safety, my responsibility. Because colleagues, people need to take ownership of what they do. We cannot just give people fish all the time. We'll get bankrupt. All of government states will get bankrupt if you have that concept in mind. But when you start teaching people how to fish, starting to teach people the value of their inputs and how to save and how to contribute themselves to the spirit of Ubuntu, and not only wait for government to be that player. It's important. And we look at other sources. We really look at our embassies. We look at our partners. We write to our embassies to say, these are our programs. We've got my colleague Tabile that's in the session, plays a very important role in that. We know that when we travel and when we go to spaces and when we discuss with people, we know that the American embassy is offering certain types of programs. And if it impacts on the social justice realm, especially when it impacts with community, to impact the community, then we need to project package our application to them and get the resources. It's a lot of work, packaging stuff and bringing stuff together and those type of things, but we have to start doing that. We have to start looking at that. The other ways to get money is also to go and very proactively understand what your stock exchange do, what your businesses that's linked to stock exchange do for social relief and social initiatives, corporate social initiatives in their space. And if you know where if those businesses are sitting in your space, and the city of Durban being a big city has some of these multinational businesses, has some of the big registered South African businesses headquartered in the space, it's about knocking on their door and saying, this is what our plights are. These are our challenges. This is what we anticipate mitigations to be. And this is what we require as funding sources. Sometimes they may not give you the full amount, but they will give you a percentage. It's about us looking differently as officials, as government officials, to say that the fiscus, the National Treasury fiscus, is not going to provide money for social development. Unfortunately, they do not see it as an important sector in anything that they do as government. They concentrate on infrastructure, on economic development, and all those type of things. And we have to, as social people, as social empowerment actors, we have to go out there and be creative to find things. And we do not need to be shy to knock on doors. We understand that the Finance Management Act within our space will not give us the leverage for us to physically go and knock on the door. That's why we create special purpose vehicles like not-for-profit organizations and those type of things that would give the ability to knock on the doors so that they can go and do community programs, whilst the government, the local government practitioners, create an enabling environment for that to be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roshini. Yours speak of the creativity a local government needs to put in place, to develop, to be able to tackle all these challenges, including the funding challenges. And I'm glad you made a reference to the capacity of city diplomacy to be also an origin for funding. And indeed it is. And it is important, of course, to see city diplomacy as an empowering strategy and not just as a goal in itself. We can see that there are other very interesting questions. We are going to take just the last one from Teresa Subban. Development and project implementation tend to be long processes. How do we sustain interest in them over the longer term? Liz, would you like to start answering this question?
So in Leeds, we've taken a decision to devolve power in terms of community engagement to the very lowest level. So we have a local democracy structure. So we, a bit like other large cities, we'll have a big citywide structure, but we have a local democracy structure where local councillors lead programs of work, including, I feel very, very privileged having listened to my colleagues from New Orleans and Durban. We actually have budgets that are delegated to deliver locally grown projects in Leeds. So I feel absolutely privileged that I benefit and our city benefits from that. And those projects are really very, very small amounts of money, but very much about the community coming forward with ideas and the local politicians' support. And through that process, to answer the question, that has helped to develop a sense of confidence amongst our communities, particularly our most deprived communities, where we allocate funding on the 50% deprivation, 50% population basis. So the areas of greatest deprivation get larger amounts of money. So that means that some of those areas we've been able to work more intensively to build confidence. And so when we see longer term programs of work come along, we involve the community at the first point of design. So at the very onset, so that's not always easy because as we'll know as community, working in a community settings, you have gatekeepers and you have people that's voices are very loud. So we of course engage with those, but we very much try to engage with the wider public. So those going to the places, as others have said, where those people that perhaps wouldn't engage with us in a big meeting or anything, but going to the social events, going to community events and talking to local people about what's important to them. And that has now helped us to really make sure that voice of local people, when we're implementing large-scale schemes, is there from the very beginning and right through the journey in terms of the program's implementation, so that we can swap and change as the community say that this this is going to happen and this is going to impact on us, we can consider that, and we can make changes to the way that we deliver the project as we go along in order to consider how we get the best outcomes for local people, and we bring them on that journey, and also helping them to create that sense of commitment to that area, because one of the issues we have in some of our most deprived areas is that people find the first point of that they can to leave those areas. So we have a big problem around people actually committing and actually then feeling like they want to invest time and effort and energy into supporting local projects. So I think the answer in terms of the question from our perspective in Leeds is engaging with local people as soon as we can, and involving them right along the journey in every step of that journey as much as we can, so that they feel that we're working with them and that journey is their journey and not a journey that we're doing to them. So that's how we do it in Leeds. But I do feel very privileged that we have got this very local democracy structure that allows us to really feed some of that bottom up initiatives, which are really important to us.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And I would like to ask Roshini about this importance of keeping the interest, the action, the engagement high, even when we have those long processes in place.
Yes, thank you. Very important question. And it's about how you build the foundation. Okay, and like Liz said, you've got to bring the communities on board upfront. And you've got to grow, and you've got to maintain that relationship. It's not, and you've got to watch the space. Okay, especially when it comes to our space, because people are constantly moving to greener pastures. So you might have somebody in a neighborhood taking ownership or providing an advisory role in a specific type of project, but they leave the area. They go for job opportunities elsewhere. They go and reside in other spaces, and the physical, there's a cutoff in that space. So as local government practitioners, when we're putting projects on the ground, it's important that we monitor that process all the time and making sure that we constantly keeping in touch with them and communicating, so we know what's really happening in the projects for a long-term process. The other thing that's very, very important is to start sharing the success stories. So when people start to see the value and to see that they're doing something right, it's a human nature for us to want to see the good side of things. So when you start sharing the stories and those type of things, people will maintain it, will continue in it, because they see the benefit, including the long-term benefit on that process. Thanks.
Thank you, Roshini. And Khalida, would you like also to provide your view on that question?
Yeah, I think I just echo my fellow colleagues and panelists for sure. I'll probably just look at the second question as well. How do we encourage communities to take responsibility and partner with the city in the development process? And I'll be frank with you, I think there is a level of city responsibility to initiate that engagement, but why wait for the city, right? So there's also that part. But I think if you're able to identify a really good community organization or community leader who can also then galvanize other community leaders in other communities and get that person or persons in contact with a city leader, a city official, to begin that conversation of wanting to engage more deeply with the city, then you have some traction at that point. That conversation can lead to more conversations and lead to bigger gatherings. I do think it is some of the responsibility of a city to lead in that conversation, but I think also community members can start the conversation by really identifying that one community leader and then connecting to the city and letting them know that, hey, we want to be in relationship. And this is a mutually beneficial purpose and reason that we get to do so. And so when it's all said and done, communities on the ground, they see people daily. City has a level of resources and limited capacity, but a level of resources that it can leverage. And this all can't just be done by one group or one individual. And so I hope that's encouraging, but being able to just take initiative as a community lead and also put a little pressure on our city officials to engage in that is what I would suggest.
Thank you very much, Khalida. Very encouraging words. And unfortunately, we are almost at the end of our available time. And I would like to ask if all the panelists can have a little closing remarks about this dialogue we've just had. Maybe we can start with Roshini.
I want to say thank you very much from the EThekwini Municipality for the opportunity that's the City Diplomacy Lab, and as well as other colleagues, has given us to put forward our Kwandanezi Human Security Program as a better practice. We appreciate it, but we equally open to partner on other things, and we will be knocking on your doors, my other sister panelists. We really and truly look forward to future conversations and actually better practice learning in the space. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Roshini. Khalida, please.
I just echo the same thing. This is just a wonderful opportunity and platform to have these conversations on an international and global level. I would just encourage those who are listening to not lose heart in this journey of social justice work, right? I think if everyone is impacting their little corner of the world, we'll ultimately see this puzzle come together. It's persistent and consistent work that needs to happen, but we are very much equipped to it with what a time to be alive, right? With all the technology and the things that we have access to. And so as the City of New Orleans will continue to think about people and improving their quality of life, we look forward to rely on other cities across the globe of how they're thinking about those things as well, and being in partnership and communication with each other. And so we're not all by ourselves, and so that's a good thing to know.
Thank you very much, Khalida. Liz, please.
Yeah, just to really reiterate what everybody else has said, and thank you again from Leeds for giving us the opportunity to talk about some of our challenges and some of the good work that's taking place. But I think it's also, for me, it's also reassuring. We live in a global society now, and we often think that we all live in different continents and that our struggles are different. But actually, when we listen to our struggles, then they're not so different, really. And there's an awful lot we can learn from sharing our knowledge and experience and our practice. So this has been really interesting for me, and I've really enjoyed learning about what other places are doing and how we could potentially work together in the future. So thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you, Roshini, Khalida, Liz. I do share the enthusiasm and the feeling of having been deeply inspired by your words. I'm sure our audience also share this feeling. It's really been extremely enriching. Thank you so much. And allow me also to thank the people that collaborate with me in organizing this webinar. Andrew Wells from the Columbia Global Center, Paris, John Donegan from the Leeds City Council, Tabile Ngomezulu from EThekwini Municipality, and Rosine Pemasanga from the City of New Orleans. Thank you very much for your precious support. And of course, many, many thanks to our audience for your kind participation and your questions. You are all invited to our next webinar, Cities and Social Solutions Gender, which will take place on March 14 at 6 p.m. Central European Time. You can find the link to register in the chat. Thank you very much to everyone. Goodbye and take care.